Hi friends, this is Sarthak Dev, and today I will discuss about the achievements of T.S. Eliot as a literary critic with reference to his views on tradition and impersonality of the poet with references to his essay, tradition and individual talent. So let's start. T.S. Eliot represents the modern poet critic in the long tradition of poet critics, including Dryden, Coleridge, Arnold, and others during his long career of over 50 years as a leading modern poet and literary critic. He wrote more than 500 essays, including lectures on almost all aspects of literary criticism. As the leading poet and literary critic of 20th century, T.S. Eliot declared his literary criticism as the byproduct of private works of poetry. It means that he has recorded his experiences as a poet in his works of literary criticism. He has used some phrases which have acquired as acquired a wide appreciation and currency. Currency means सब जगह चलना. He praised metaphysical poets because their poetry is characterized by what Eliot calls association of sensibility. He says that metaphysical poetry is characterized by a direct sensuous apprehension of thought or a creation of thoughts into feelings. Eliot did what he called elucidation, elucidation of a work of art and reorientation of a text, which is the real function of criticism. इलूशिडी इलूशिडेशन का मतलब होता है कि उसके फीलिंग को पाठकों तक पहुंचाना. Now I will discuss about tradition and individual talent. Tradition and individual talent was written when Eliot was hardly 30 years old, but it is so significant as a as an essay that it may be regarded as an unofficial manifesto of Eliot's critical creed. This essay is indeed a pace setter. पेस सेटर मतलब गति को दिशा देने वाला. Walk in modern literary critics. The ideas contained in this essay are like the seeds which is at the root of all the critical principles of Eliot as a literary critic. The essay is divided into three parts. First, the first part deals with Eliot's conception of tradition. The second part deals with Eliot's theory of impersonality in poetry. The third part is in the nature of a conclusion. Tradition. Now I will discuss about tradition. T.S. Eliot revolutionized, यानी कि पूर्ण रूप से बदलना, the concept of tradition with his essay Tradition and Individual Talent, published in 1919. Before the publication of this essay, tradition was regarded as a word of censure. English people in general were fond of phrasing something new in a work of art. Eliot says that it's a wrong view of tradition. He says that tradition represents the accumulated wisdom and experience of ages. A poet is supposed to have a sound knowledge of the wisdom and experience which is contained in tradition. The knowledge of tradition enriches and vitalizes the sensibility of a poet. He says that there are the two elements in tradition. The one element of tradition represents the timeless wisdom of the ages. Another element of tradition is temporal, which is not valuable for a poet. The critical faculty of a great poet consists in observing the timeless and rejecting the temporal. For this, a poet has to have a sense of history, because the past affects the present and present modifies the past. Eliot calls it the present. Eliot calls it the pastness of the past and presence of the past. Then he goes on to say that tradition in this sense is not blind imitation of the past. Rather, it is acquired with the hard labor and critical individual talent which shifts the timeless from the temporal. In this sense, tradition is a dynamic force which shapes our present and future, Eliot says. And time future contained in time past. Eliot means to say that tradition is something highly valuable and it can't be separated from individual talent. It means that a work of art can't be written without the traditional wisdom of the great writers, of the poet, which shapes and fashion our present. Now I will discuss about theory of impersonality. The second part of the essay, Tradition and Individual Talent, deals with the personality of a poet in a work of art. Eliot was a classicist who did not believe in the expression of personality in a poem. He believed that the poet and the poem are two different and separate things. In the beginning of his career, a poet is generally subjective, but in the course of time, his powers mature and gradually he becomes more and more objective. In other words, he surrounders in other words, it means that he surrenders himself to something more valuable, and gradually the process of extinction of a personality starts. He says the progress of an artist is a continual self-sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. Eliot is of the opinion that Eliot का विचार यह है कि there is no relation between the poet's personality and the poem. Explaining his point of view, Eliot says that the poet is just a medium for the poem. He compares the mind of the poet to a jar in which a number of emotions, feelings, images, and phrases are put together. The poet is just a catalytic, it means utpredak agent, catalytic agent which is responsible for a chain of reactions and new compounds which are recorded in the poem. The process of creation is turning blood into ink. The greatness of a poem does not depend upon the greatness of the immediate source of emotion. What counts most in the intensity of the process of creation in which new compounds made up of contradictory emotions are organized into living wholes. Ode to a Nightingale is an example in which the ideas and sentiments are not directly related to the initial source of emotions. It is on this ground that Eliot rejects the tradition of poetry given by Wordsworth as emotions recollected in tranquility. As such, according to Eliot, poetry is a deep personalized organization of emotions, and the poet is just a medium for the same. Thus, we see that Eliot's essays, tradition, and individual talent revolutionized यानी कि परिवर्तन करना the concept of tradition and relation between the poet and poem. These views regarding the process of creation are based on objective and scientific attitude to the process of creative work of art. As such, T.S. Eliot is the most luminous strain, the galaxy of the poet. Critics who have enriched the tradition of English literary criticism. That's all. Thank you very much for listening. Hi friends, this is Sarthak Dev.